Permissions in SharePoint give users access to necessary areas and dictate the options a user has when in that area. Proper permissions also keep unauthorized personnel from accessing specific areas and information, and since SharePoint has security trimming, most users have no idea that they are being kept out of those specific areas. However, permissions are one of the hardest parts in SharePoint to properly set up. Following best practices for permissions can ensure that the security of company information is kept to a high standard, as well as ensuring maintainability of the site collection. Proper permissions can also ensure adherence to various industry regulations. Typically, most companies bring all users into the collection via Active Directory and have some kind of access at the top level. Then most companies use SharePoint user groups to permission the rest of the site collection. If you are a small company, you probably don't use Active Directory to access SharePoint 365. Generally, this is considered the best practice for authentication and authorization for access to SharePoint. There are 4 different areas that permissions can be set, which include the site, list or library, folder or document set, and document or list item level. If permissions are changed at any level, then everything located within that area inherits the same permissions. It is best practice to ensure that individual documents or list items never have individual permission levels, as documenting permission and individual document or list items would be a logistical nightmare. Instead, folders or document sets should be used to collectively group the items so that the items within the folder or documents would inherit the same permissions. There are 6 permission levels that are most commonly used in SharePoint, which include full control, designer, edit, contribute, read, and view. Knowing the basic differences between these permission levels can help the site owner/manager decide the permission levels for the various groups of users. The ability to change permissions should not be given to everybody, so full control rights should only be given to a select few. And any other developers should be given design rights. Edit rights should never be used, as it gives the user the right to delete an entire list or library. So contribute rights should be the most common permission level used. This will allow users to edit documents and/or list items. If a person needs to be able to delete lists or libraries, then that user should get design rights. Read and view rights are given based on whether a user needs the ability to download documents. Read rights allow a user to download documents, but that user will not be allowed to re-upload the document, where view rights only allow a user to look at the actual document. Planning out the SharePoint permission groups can be a daunting task, as users can be placed in multiple groups, and the same group can be used in multiple areas, and the same group can have different permission levels in different areas. It can get a little crazy real fast. So using groups is always best practice, even when there's only one person in that group. If a person is part of more than one group, they will always have the highest permission level available to them in that area. Groups also allow for quickly changing out or adding users to different areas from one place. Otherwise, updating users requires going to every single area the user exists to remove or add them. Best practices for permissions are vital to a healthy and easy-to-use site collection. Permissions can be the difference between a site that is easy to use and secure to a site that is confusing and maybe a legal nightmare for the company. Mission Critical Training offers courses that go over best practices for SharePoint at length and help the SharePoint developer plan and build a successful site collection to include permission setup. SharePoint classes run every month, and students are given their own site to interact with during the class so that each student gets hands-on experience with using and developing SharePoint sites.